As mentioned previously, rescue personnel must also be available while confined space work is being performed. Rescue personnel will require additional specialized training beyond the training of confined space entrance or standby personnel. They must have instruction on the proper use of rescue equipment, and they should also have the necessary first aid training, including CPR. A rescue worker cannot enter a confined space unless there is at least one other worker located outside to render assistance. In some cases, the rescue personnel may be a third party, such as a fire department. However, a written agreement must be in place detailing the services that are to be provided. Rescue personnel must be notified prior to entering the confined space and after completion of the work. Rescue personnel must conduct practice rescue drills annually. The employer is required to maintain records of these rescue drills. Here are a few other best practices that will ensure work being performed in a confined space is carried out safely. Confined spaces should be marked and/or barricaded appropriately in order to prevent anyone from accidentally entering the space. All potential energy sources should be de-energized. This means using a lockout or tagout system and either isolating or draining stored energy. Electrical tools and equipment must be grounded or double insulated. If wet or damp conditions exist within the confined space, electrical circuits must be protected by a ground fault circuit interrupter. Only non-sparking tools may be used where flammable or explosive gases, vapors, or liquids are present. Standby workers should make provisions to prevent entanglement of cords and lifelines while being run into and out of the confined space. Compressed gas cylinders are not permitted in confined spaces. The exception, of course, being compressed breathing air. And never ventilate a space with pure oxygen. Doing so may cause an increased risk of fire. This concludes the lesson on Confined Space program. In this lesson, you learned about confined space training, entry requirements, confined space entry permit, gas detection, ventilation, monitoring attendance standby workers, rescue personnel, and other confined space best practices.
It happened in a vat at a winery in the Okanagan, in a shed at a mine in Kimberley, and in the rusty hold of a barge in New Westminster. Each time, workers died when they entered a confined space with not enough oxygen to breathe. Even worse, rescuers who tried to save them also perished. Incredibly, about 6 out of every 10 people who die in confined spaces are would-be rescuers. This sobering reality means that for any work around a confined space, there has to be a rescue plan that's tested and ready in advance.
The rescue from a confined space is, in most cases, a body recovery. You're going in to pick up somebody who has died as a consequence of an exposure to a toxic atmosphere or low oxygen. It's a real problem.
Can you hear me? Can you move your feet? I can see a foot. Can you wiggle it for me? Try and move that foot a bit. Okay, patient's unresponsive. Rescue 1, let's get ready to go.
If you follow the procedures, you have a proper confined space entry program, you do hazard identification and risk assessments, you look at what the job function is going to be, what you're doing in the space. Are you going to create any airborne contaminants? And, you have an atmospheric monitoring program in place. You have a lockout and isolation program in place. If you do all those things to mitigate the hazard to the worker, you probably shouldn't end up putting a worker in a potential rescue situation. But you always have the medical component. Somebody has a heart attack or a medical problem within that space. How are you going to get them out of that space? And who's going to do it?
Most modern fire and rescue departments have some technical rescue capability, a skill that requires constant training and practice. That being said, industry must take responsibility for assessing risk and preparing to deal with it.
Industry used to say, well, we'll call 911 if the event, some jurisdictions, some municipalities don't have that capacity. Some fire departments are small and they don't have a confined space rescue capability within their department. So just calling 911, it doesn't cut it anymore for a rescue plan. We train right now. Last year, our team documented 5,400 man hours of training for that year. The key point is competency. Is that team capable, equipped, and able to perform a rescue? And a rescue doesn't mean that you have a tripod sitting here and you got a winch. It means, you know, you need to have a plan in place, and you need to practice that plan, and that you can actually extricate somebody out of that space.
Human nature is such that we assume things are reliable and predictable. But when it comes to working in a confined space, the dangers are often invisible. Response time is critical, but so is ability.
The path to hell is paved with good intentions, and these people go in and they try and rescue, and they end up being victims themselves.